Hello, hello. Happy Sunday to everyone. Happy Sunday. Let me check my settings real quick as y'all are jumping on. Happy Sunday to my Instagram family as well. Make sure we're good here. We're on day 29, y'all. It has been crazy. Going through this challenge with you all has definitely been an honor and a privilege. Thank you all for your time and listening to me and providing me with feedback along the way. And just in case you all don't know me, my name is Tiffany Newton. I'm a master certified health and life coach, and I'm been called the co-parenting coach now. And hey, Jordan, thank you for joining. My our son is telling me that the library is closed. That's where they're at. But thank you for joining. But I help co-parents establish and maintain healthy relationships with one another so they can raise emotionally healthy children without experiencing long-term communication issues. And they can do that by using my child first method. And we've been talking about the child first method over the past couple of weeks in detail. And this week we talked about letting go. And as you know, the child first method, it has been compared to a vault. So in that vault, we're focusing on our child's best interest because we want to raise an emotionally healthy child. And we're also focusing on having a healthy co-parenting relationship. So that's what's inside of our vault. And the combinations to our vault is our child first method, or I should say the child in child first method, which is communication, which involves partnership and collaboration, honoring the other parent's role, involvement with the child, letting go of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and determining everything to put the child first and what's in the best interest of the child together. So, as we have been talking about that, we started talking about that yesterday, determining what's in the best interest of the child on yesterday. We're going to continue that discussion today with my baby daddy coming on. So I want you all to welcome Alford Tyrell Norman. I don't know what all to say about him, but I'm going to let him introduce himself. But I'm going to bring him on now.
Hey
Hey, Tyrell.
everybody,
Hey, you see me?
I can see you. Can you hear me?
I do. I do. Now, everybody, I call him Tyrell, so that's probably why he has his whole name on there. So just so you all know, why I'm calling him that is why. But please introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. A quick disclaimer about my name. I do use my name 50-50. So at work and in the professional setting, I use Alfred or Al. The beginning of the day, once 5 o'clock hits, I go in straight to real mode. And that's pretty much been how it's been all my life. So I'm one of the people that uses their entire name. A little bit about me as far as Um, my upbringing, I was born in Los Angeles, California. My mother and father divorced when I was 5. And my father, of course, we moved all the way 2,000 miles away to Alabama. So, I had a relationship with my father where I would go out every other summer. And then he was a graduate of Fairfield High School. Shout out to Fairfield. He's a graduate from Fairfield High School. So he would come here either even summers or odd summers. And so I would actually see him every summer. But, I did deal with just from my own experience, feelings of rejection and acting out and things that teens deal with. And sort of had dialogue with a lot of my friends who were on the other side of divorce and sort of dealing with whatever, whether their mom had a boyfriend or stepdad. I remember having a conversation with one of my friends that, we looked down the block and we was like, don't nobody on the street got their real daddy in the house. You know what I mean? And so, and so my mom remarried when I was 6. And, I grew up in the house with a stepdad who, we had our turbulence, we had our struggles and our challenges, especially, you know, um, I would say my teen years when I decided I wanted to try to run his house, and just, you're dealing with all this kind of stuff as a young person. But once we sort of got past that, we had a great relationship, I would say, to the point where I got to college and so on. Right. So, and then I married and then ended up with a daughter who wasn't biologically mine, but who I like to say she's not my biological, but she is my biological. And so I was put in the place of rearing and having to love a child that, I wasn't a part of, her biological circumstance. And so, and I love her to this day with all my heart. And so, a little bit about who I am as a person, as a parent, and sort of how all this ties in to my viewpoints as it relates to, post-divorce and co-parenting.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I tell you, you wouldn't know, apart from complexion, skin complexion, that Denise and Tyrell were the father and daughter, because he definitely spoils her like any father would with their daughter. And I'm just grateful to God for that. So now, everyone who has joined, I'll give you an opportunity to ask us, any questions along the way of our discussion, and as we focusing on, determining and everything, what's best for our child, so you can kind of hear a little bit about, our journey. And you've heard my story throughout these last 28, 29 days, but I want Tyrell to have an opportunity to kind of share with him, share with you all, how has it been from a father's perspective, so Tyrell, I guess I ask you, what was your journey like post divorce? I guess I kind of have a three-part question. What was your journey like post divorce? How did you adapt to it? And did you have any challenges along the way?
Yeah, it was, and it's interesting because from a male perspective, I've even heard other guys say, right, like, you love them kids like a mom or something like that, right? So from a male perspective, and I know this is not every dad or every male, because I know there's some great dads out there. There's some dads my age and younger that give me inspiration or have given me inspiration. So, but I do understand that from a societal standpoint, that there's a viewpoint that a father's love is supposed to be, uh, you know, subpar to a mother's love, right? So it's kind of comical when I even share this, and I've shared this with a couple friends of mine. So the challenge that I had was that for 9 years and for 7 years of my children's life, I was used to seeing them every single day. I had never missed a day, and I'm a person that worked, multiple jobs and things of that nature, but still, I would see my children every single day, apart from vacation and stuff like that. So, when we arranged for, our week to week co-parenting, it was unbelievably, tough to an extent of shock, um, to just fathom I'm about to go 7 days, each week without seeing my children, right? And so, um, me and my kids, we sort of joke tongue in cheek, because what would happen is when I would take them back, especially I remember the very first week that we did the co-parenting, and we actually got on schedule, and I would take them back to the house, and I would sort of, see them leave and bye bye dad and all this kind of stuff. And, you don't know whether to walk up to the house or go in the house or, stay in the car. What's the protocol, right? You knew all this. But all I knew is when I got back in that car, they weren't there and the reality hit. So there's a stop sign down the road from where I was dropping them off at their mom house. And I'm sitting there trying to like hold everything in because I'm a man, right? And I'm a man's man. So I don't want my boys to see any weakness, right? And that's just, trying to hide and shield that vulnerability. And I would get to that stop sign literally and just explode with emotion. And then I would just ride around. And so I wasn't able to go home. A lot of times I would go to my mom's house to just have a cool off period, or I would go to a restaurant. I had one favorite Mexican restaurant that sort of knew my routine, and they would have my margaritas already ready for me. But it was real challenging. And then the big picture was I would go back home. Eventually, I would have to go back home, and I go back home to an empty, quiet house where they're not there, because I think the thing that's discounted with children and is that they bring so much life to the environment. Especially my children. They bring so much life and then so much, a level of escape from us just being, employees and whatever other roles that we hold. Those children sort of give us a sort of a healthy distraction, right? So I'm a big proponent of getting down in their world and kind of becoming that big kid sometimes, or and having that balance where I'm dad and they have to come up to my world, right? And we have conversations, and I always say I don't do elephants in the room, and I always had a quote when my kids were even small that we don't do Disney, right? We put everything on the table. And so that was the biggest challenge, just not, having to not see them every day. And, one day became 2 days and 3 days. And so it became real challenging, to the point my sons actually caught me one time where they just wouldn't get out the car. And my sons, especially my oldest son, and even my youngest son too, but mostly my oldest son, he does the most when it's time to go back to mom's house. I love you, Dad, and Dad, I'm gonna miss you so much, and we had so much fun this week. I'm like, dude, just go, bro. Like literally saying, like I'm feeling it coming. I'm trying to put on the hardest gangster rap song I can possibly find.
Right.
Like, go, get out of here, and he caught me and he was like, Dad, are you crying? I'm like, nah, man, it's sinuses, so. But that was sort of like the biggest challenge. That was the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tell you that was a challenge for me too. I mean, because when they left, it was just, it took me a while to just, I don't know how long it took you, but it took me a minute just to get used to, them not being here, and just thinking of, because you were always known as the fun parent, and I was the serious parent. And I felt like thank you for everyone for joining on Instagram, uh, and Facebook as well. But, I think I really struggled with kind of stepping away from not being so serious all the time. I literally had to take a play from your playbook and not take things so seriously and just start playing with them. And I know that's one thing that really helped me, when they did come back, was to just take out that time and just, spend with them and play with them and not be so concerned with, what it is that we needed to do and have this, because I'm very structured, compared to you. You're not as structured as I am. So I had to really, just relax and just enjoy being a mom. So I definitely understand from that vantage point. Um, and that thank you for joining. Annette, she mentioned that Black men really do love their children and are a part of their lives. And she also mentioned that divorce is challenging for the entire family, creating new norms. That's true. And that is my sister. So um, that's something that we could talk about too. Just the the fact that we divorced each other, but we didn't divorce our families. you know because our families are still there. They still love both of us. And I know you were talking about um the fact that we were able to co-parent, with the 7 days on, 7 days off. That's what we do. We literally share custody of our kids. But, there's also, dads out there that have the every other weekend, the only, 4 days, 5 days out the month. I mean, what would you say to those dads, who aren't, who don't have the opportunity that you have to have this the 1 week on, 1 week off? What would you say to them?
So let me say this first. And this is answering the question. So I kind of cheated y'all, and their mom attested this, but nobody knew sort of what I was doing. So my trick to see my kids more was to coach baseball. So I began really, really coaching baseball and was able to see both of my kids a lot more through baseball practice and just becoming his assistant baseball coach for especially, I did it before we began co-parenting, but I really, really didn't miss a beat after we started co-parenting because I was like, I gotta figure out a way to fill in this week, right? And so that's what I would say. Figure out a way if they're involved in anything, and you guys have strict setups to where there may be little flexibility, or you are just um, judicially bound to 2 day or 4 day setup. Figure out a day, man, to see what they got going on in the 10, right? Whether it's recitals, whether it's dances, whether it's, especially with sports has practices, and so figure out a way to get in there and see them and spend time with them. And some of these practices, these kids practice like they're professionals, right? We have 2-3 hour practices, right? And so I would just sit out there and watch practice, and kids involved in a whole lot of stuff. Other than that, I would just say if you don't have those opportunities, or there's not those liberties, just make the best. When it comes to your kid, I would say this: make the best out of the time that you have. And because I even say right now, right, like my son's an 8th grader, right, and he has 5 years. And I think I recently mentioned this to you, Tiff. Really have, when you're talking about co-parenting and splitting, that's cut in half, right? So that 5 years becomes 2.5 years, right? And so she would tell you, when they're with me, we are all go, right? We're all go training, preparing them to be young men, preparing them to be productive citizens in society. So I would just say that with the time you have, regardless of how much time it is, maximize it. And I understand that as parents, we got responsibilities, we got duties, we got a lot of roles that we play, but just maximize whatever time. Give that child assurance that you love them. I was even saying with my dad, right? I saw my dad very limited. I probably saw my dad, and I mentioned this, my dad passed this past January. I probably saw my dad 365 days total in 46 years, right? If I was to really do a tabulation of it. But when I saw him and when I spent time with him, there was immediate reverence. And I'll share this with you guys and ladies out there. When I would go to California, and I've told this story before, I would have my speech ready, and I said, I'm gonna tell him just like that, and I'm gonna, when I get there, I'm gonna say why you left, da 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 da, and why you ain't there, and why I ain't heard from you, and all this kind of stuff. But when I got off the airplane and I got outside that airport, you know, that man demanded, and asserted himself as a father with no missing beat, right? And so, I had to come to attention. It was like salute, yes, sir. All that speech I had, what I was going to say and what I was going to do on the airplane. So I would say this to fathers: whatever time you have, just assure that kid that you love them, spend time with them. you know, I say get down in their world, but a lot of times I'll sit and listen to them, and inquire of what they're feeling and what they're thinking, and you'd be amazed how brilliant these kids are, right? And a lot of times I'll pull things from them and sort of glean from them. But the other side of that, as I mentioned with my father, is don't be an apologist, right? Don't if you can at all avoid being the dad that feel like as soon as they show up, you gotta go get ice cream because you feel like you're on a guilt trip, or you know, don't be that person either, right? Because the kid picks up on that, right? And believe me, the other side of a child is if they feel like they can play you, they're gonna play you, right? So assert
Right.
yourself as their father. And I'm not here. She mentioned I'm the fun dad, but they also say I can go from 0 to 100 in a
Oh
heartbeat.
yeah, you can. You can.
So, I think my kids, and I tell my kids all the time that, you know, we try to have balance, and I've earned the right, to discipline, because we extend a whole bunch of liberties and love, right? So I would just say that is my tip that I would give.
That's good. That's good. And one thing that you were talking when you were talking, I was thinking about, just the struggle for me with allowing you to have them as often as you do, because I mean, a lot of moms, they fight, you know, and most of the time the court they'll give it to the mom because that's the standard. That's what they're used to doing. But and then of course I was told differently. That I was told, go and get your kids, and all this, that, and the other. But I think what I realized is that, oh my God, I have two sons, and I'm not gonna know how to really teach them how to be men. But here they have a father who can show them how to do that. And in doing the live, these lives, I talked about superpowers and how you have to, and this was in the honoring the other parents' roles segment. And I talked about, realizing the other parent's strengths and yours as well. And I knew that I was strong with taking care of what was going on in the present. I was good at appointments and getting this, whatever it is they need, I knew I was good at. And one thing I realized, and this was in a space of awareness and a space of letting go. And as co-parents, we have to do this when we're in transition. Because if we don't, then we're not going to understand how we need to respond to the other co-parent. But I realized that you were so good, and I mean, to this day, I mean, I love it because you're so good with showing them how to be men. I know once they leave out this door, I mean, you go work them to the bone over there, but you're teaching them lessons along the way. Just like you say, you're not Disney. And me, on the other hand, I have a tendency to kind of brush or airbrush things to the point where I don't, I might circle the airport a little bit, but you just dive right on in. But that's just the difference in both of us and how much both of them really need both of those dynamics, even now. So I definitely appreciate that. But I want to, tell that to the moms, it's certain when you have boys, if the father wants to be there, you have to allow that father to be there to show that boy, that son, how to grow up and be a man.
And I'll speak to that point real quick. I know that's not a direct question, but I grew up in, again, like I said, I grew up in a neighborhood where nobody had their real dad in the house, right? Unfortunately, right? We grew up in, I was born in '77, so my primitive years were 19, let's just say 84, when I really knew what was going on, through, let's just say early '90s, where um, there was a separation. There was heavy separation of parents. We were dealing with, the emergence of gangs, and then I was going to and from California back to here. So, and then we had the emergence of crack, right? The crack epidemics. And so, we were sort of a part of, seeing families get split, and seeing folks just do whatever they needed to do to cope with life and pressures and stuff. So I think we were the first generation that really dealt with that level of, where, like I said, I look down the road and nobody has their biological father in the house. I think the generation before that would attest that, marriages had issues, but it wasn't that level of separation. And so, to your point, as far as balance and sort of my take on that, I am real big with, it was important to me, and me and my kids, we do role play, right? It's important to me, especially as young Black men, that they are aware and that they know how to navigate, and that they don't just, I tell my kids all the time, especially like when the incident when George Floyd happened, right? I called you and I said, is it
Right.
okay if they watch this? Because I want them to see the entire 8 minutes and 46 seconds, right?
Right.
And we had a conversation about that. And so I had a deeper conversation with them because I don't want to be that parent that says, my kid didn't have a weapon in their hand. Why did they shoot him? Right. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be the parent, and I want to have my kid, I want to be proactive to the point where I am sharing with them how to avoid, you know, even the suspicion of those type situations. Right. So I shared with my son one time, we were at a gas station. And of course, again, we lived in Hoover, so great practice, right?
Right. Right.
No better practice for a Black male than to, go in a gas station in Hoover with two
I get
police
it.
officers on each side, right? And so I told him, I
Mhm.
said, "Here's my card. I need you to go in the gas station and get a Coke, Pepsi, whatever I sent him there to get." I said, "Now you're gonna see your favorite now later. You're gonna see your favorite piece of candy, but you only have money for this Coke. So the only way you can get something that you don't have money for is to take it." I said, "And a 5 cent piece. I don't know how much now laters are now, but I told him myself 5 cent now later can cost you as a Black male your entire life. So
Mm.
get in there, do what you need to do, pay for it, and get back to your car. Don't hang out in parking lots and things of that nature, and get out of there." Right. And I'm not
Mhm.
suggesting that every situation was that, but that is sort of, my thing with them is really just letting them understand that in this life, if you're not geared, if you're not prepared, if you're just sort of nilly-willy floating around and don't know what the heck is going on, this thing is going to eat you up and spit you out like nobody's business, right? And so
Yeah.
that's one of the big motivating factors in terms of just making sure that we train them and making sure that I have them equipped to prepare, because before we look up, they'll be in college, right? And if
Yeah.
they're just naive and and just um, you know um, just looking at the stars and everything is just so wonderful, they don't have any idea what's going on, right? We subject them to pressures and that they are not prepared for, equipped for, right? And everything looks like a shiny object. And so those are some of the things that sort of motivate me when training them and preparing them.
Yeah. And I know when you asked me that, I was just like, thank God, because I didn't know how to talk to him about that. Because I'm not a Black man. And I experienced my own, level of discrimination. But I don't know it to the extent that they would, experience it. So the fact that you were able to step up and really share with them. And one thing I do like that you do too is, no matter whether they're with me or with you remain consistent in your relationship with them. And I think that definitely, that makes a difference when we're firm from house to house, because it gives them more of a sense of stability, during that time, and security. Trisha, she said, I would say that if the parents don't show one another love and respect, even in the divorce, they fail the children. And at the end of the day, it's not about us. That's true.
I would
That's
agree. I would agree 1,000,000%. And going back to your point, Tricia, one of the things, as mad as I was at everybody as a young person, and I had a lot of animosities, right? Because I'm in a household, you know, with another man with his kids, and my father is 2,000 miles away, right? And so I'm dealing with that feelings of reject and neglect. But one of the things I can honestly say that helped me is that my mom would never endorse that, right? No matter
Mhm.
how I felt, no matter how I would lash out under my breath or whatever the case may be, she would always demand that I respect my father. And that was one of the things right off the gate that from the boys, not that they had any issues uh, as far as, because they're very respectful kids, but I would reinforce that, it's Mother's Day. We're going to
Mhm.
get Mother's Day gifts, right? It's your mother's birthday. you know. And then just your grandmother, regardless of the divorce, that will forever be your grandmother. Your grandfather will forever be, and I think you can say that, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I think they have to see it.
Right.
And then because to Teresa's point, if you model something different, that's the vision that they're going to have, right? And a lot of times they're going to take on the lead that you set.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I completely agree with that because I mean, I'll do the same thing over here, you know, in regard and I'm glad that I think I saw, I think, or maybe I heard, how your mom was with your dad because I didn't have a point of reference, in regards to divorce or co-parenting, with kids. I didn't. I mean, all I knew is that I was going to keep my children first, and it didn't matter what was going on. But the fact that I think I knew how your mom was with your dad, I think that really helped me, because even with, when we first got married and Denise was in the picture, I told her, you're going to respect Tyrell whether you liked him or not. Not she had a problem with that, but I think that really carried over even with the boys, even when we were going through the divorce as well. So I definitely, so I think I'm saying that to say, don't discredit um, other people's experiences or other lessons that you learn from other people and their experiences, because there's things that you can take from their lessons. You don't necessarily have to go through those particular experiences yourself. Um, So if you have any questions, please, put them in the chat um, as well. I want to be able to answer any, or we want to be able to answer any questions as well as we're going. And if you're on Instagram and you want to see both of us, feel free to go over to the Teach Me Tribe YouTube channel, or you can see it on my Facebook page as well. Just want to mention that to everyone. Another question I have is,
Hey, Tiff, I don't mean to cut you off, but I would like to just add a shout out to Treacher because she and
oh,
Donnie were definitely an inspiration for me as a young man to see how they handle because she went through the same situation. So they 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 were definitely models of positivity for in the event that occurred, how to transition.
awesome, awesome. Thank you, Trisha, because they impacted me as well. So thank you. um, so how important was it for you to be in the chil in our boys and even Denise's life on a regular basis, after the divorce? I know you mentioned, going to the baseball or being able to coach, and but how important was that to you to be involved?
I I think you gotta have, and this is one thing that goes, I think, unstated, right? We talk about the mom and dad have to have a healthy respect for each other and different dynamics. But the one thing that I can't fix for anybody or I can't advise anybody on is that the burning love that I have inside myself for my children. I don't know if everybody has that. I can't speak to that. Like where the way my heart pulls toward my kids is, I can't even explain. Right. So, I mean, there's you know, and I say this under the pretense that I talk to a lot of men, especially post divorce, and even guys that's like, hey man, let's hang out, blah 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 blah. I got the kids. I got the kids. I got the kids this weekend. Can't hang out this weekend. Hanging out with them, right? We going whatever we're going to do, and I've heard over time some uh, disturbing commentary in terms of people having their experience of saying, what I picked up on was that their kids in some instances were a burden, right?
Mm,
Or their kids were in the way of what they would deem as higher priorities, right? And so I realized at that time that okay, there's a underlying issue that's sort of going unstated that I was in denial to because I'm real big on defending and protecting the fellas, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I would check guys right off the gate and say, hey, bro, don't ever let me hit it. I had a situation where a young man told me that his scheduled time was 5:30, and his kid's mom showed up at 5:35, and he was going to hang out with one of his friends because she, he ain't got all day to wait. And for lack of a better term, piss me off. If you know who I am when it comes to that, to me, that's disgusting conversation, right? And so, I think that, if there are other priorities, and when you become a parent, you, some of the things that we have on our agenda, they have to be put to the side for these kids, right? And so,
Right.
yeah, to answer the question as far as how important it is. I mean, my kids are not with me right now until this upcoming Thursday, right? And I'm planning, got agendas already set in place for them. But at the same time, just to, as their father, see what's going on, be able to just be there in the event that they need me, they don't need me. We're just sharing some extracurricular time. I mean, I can't even state how important it is, but it is extremely important. But I do think that starts with that just burning desire and that just immaculate love that you have for your kids, to where, as folks say, you love them like you they mama, which I don't even know what that means yet, but
I
but
don't know what that means either.
yeah. So, but whatever, love them like their mama love them, right?
Right.
That helps. Love them as equal or more than their mama, if you
Right.
possibly achieve that. So,
Right. Like y'all are supposed to love them less than we do
right.
as fathers. Oh, I tell you. Yeah. And you know what? I had a mental health licensed therapist on the other day, and we were talking about how simple it is, or we think it's simple to just put our kids first, but I mean, apparently it's not that simple. If there's, we're hearing about instances like what you were talking about, or even people who aren't even involved, whether it's the mothers or the fathers, because you can't even say now that it's just the mothers, because there is an increase of fathers who are having custody of their children now. I remember Terrence. He was on a couple of weeks ago. He posted. I want to say it was like 20 something percent of households now are have the men, but there's been an increase over the past few years. So it's showing that fathers are a lot more involved. They're fighting a lot more for their kids than what they used to, and I think it's good to see, you know, especially with the statistics of that we're seeing of when fathers are in their children's lives, how much more productive and how much more healthy the children are after in adulthood. Um, so please, if you all have any questions, please put in a chat. Um, Tricia said it's an unconditional love, yes, that we have for our kids. Annette said it's a parent. A parent is a parent, whether male or female, has nothing to do with how much we love our children. I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. Another question I have is, what have you learned? I think you might have touched on it a little bit, but I guess just to really focus on this particular question, but what have you learned post divorce? Now, if you have any questions for me, let me know, because I ask all the questions too, Tyrell. But what have you learned post divorce about yourself as a father, and even as a man?
I think the biggest adjustment for me, other than what we talked about as far as the emotional adjustments, was, um, we talked about roles, right? And to even the comment that a parent is a parent, I think they're different roles. And I know we live in a society right now where roles are, sort of shunned against or in questions or whatever the case may be, especially gender roles. But
Mm-hmm.
um, as far as the things that I was handling, we talk about administrative stuff like that, right? That was a lot of
Mhm.
times on your plate. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I got to take them to the orthodontist and sit at the front desk and things of that nature, right? And fill out the paperwork at the doctor's appointment, and wherever call you, let you know we're there if I have them and we have to attend, that kind of stuff. And then just from the standpoint of I think we have shared responsibilities in terms of um, you know not saying that every time meal preparing and stuff like that would just be all on you. But I think that when they come, I think the biggest lesson I learned is, okay, all right, this is all you. Ain't no shared, ain't no shared cooking, ain't no shared none of that, right? And so I think for me, I learned that and respect to any parent, whether you, especially if you're a full time single parent, whether you're male or female, that when they come to you, it is all on you, right, for that week, right?
Mhm.
And I mean all on you in terms of while they're in your household and while they're under your care. I mean, we have a situation where we allow flexibility in terms of the scheduling. If there's something that comes up and we can accommodate that, then we make it happen. But for the most part, I think that was the one thing, is that, okay, the things that you were not doing, or the roles that you were not playing, you have to now play them, and I think that required me to learn how things that I were, that I had deficiencies in. There were, areas that I had to say, okay, I don't like doing this, or this is not something that I would do. I'm not used to filling out, I would pass the doctor's pad, over to you in the past, right? I had to fill all
Mhm.
that stuff out, right? So
Right.
just those roles and detail roles, and making sure I'm really, really deeply involved with schools and teachers, which that hadn't panned out so well, because all my kids, school administration and staff, my son said they hate me, right? I think I got a little too involved with the teachers.
Well, I let you be the bad parent, and I'm the good parent.
Yeah, I'm definitely the bad guy at the schools, but
That's the
that.
advantage of partnership.
Right. But that, with the school stuff, for the most part, especially with the stint where I was working multiple jobs, you would attend most of those meetings. Now, I'm a lot more involved, to the chagrin of I think the schools wish that I wasn't in a lot of cases. So that's
Mhm.
probably the biggest adjustment, as far as just taking on extra roles and responsibilities, and wanting to, right, and wanting to learn and wanting to grow, and then passing those things over to your kids so that they know how to do it at the same time.
Yeah. And I would say this too, to the moms, or even people who are co-parenting. It is so important to keep the other parent in a loop, to communicate with them, because I know my strengths is, administrative reminders, because I sure will send Tyrell a text message and say, hey, this is what the boys have going on, because I know, he has his schedule too. And but I just want to make sure that he knows what's going on, whether it's an extracurricular activity, whether it's school, whether it's their health or whatever. you know I make sure I communicate that to him, and I'm not saying to myself, well, he should know that. you know is that really necessary, you know to, to say stuff like that? I mean, we're talking about the best interest of your child. So whether he should know it or not, let him know. And I would say the same thing even about the parent teacher conferences, because I know sometimes Tyrell might miss an email, and I'll text them. I'll say, hey, did you know that there's a parent teacher, or we'll schedule a parent teacher conference, and I will get with him and say, hey, is this day, or what day is best for you? So you have to work together to accomplish those things when you are talking about your children. You have to want the other parent to be involved for the best interest of your child. And if you don't, it's going to be your fault because you did not let them know. You have anything else to say about that?
No, I don't. I don't. Y'all excuse me, I don't do internet at all. So this is way out of my. I don't do
Oh
Facebook. I
yeah,
don't do none of
yeah.
that kind of
He
stuff.
don't
So
do
this
none of
is
this.
this is my
So this,
first time ever being on the live. Somebody asked me if I was on Instagram. I said, "What's the website?" So this is
yeah.
this is not my wheelhouse at all. So
Yeah, so this is definitely a treat for y'all for him to even be on here. Let's see. Tiffany says it's awesome that a father wants to experience that. Yeah, it is. And you know what? Tyrell is not the only father. There's a lot of fathers out there that want to be there. You know, he's just an example of parents wanting or fathers wanting to be there for their children. And Mikhail said it's good that the children see that parents can and will work together for them. Definitely, definitely. We have to be role models for them. Um, we have no choice. Ain't that right, Terrell? We have no choice. Do you have a question for me?
no, no, I don't.
Before
I think I asked mine in real time as we go.
okay,
As we go
okay,
through the journey. So
okay. I
yeah.
have another question. Um, this might be the last question. What advice would you give to fathers navigating through divorce? Or did you already kind of touch on that before?
We touched on it, but we can rehash it. Again, to your point, you know, the focus has to not be on the past relationship, but it just has to shift to the kids. It just has to shift for what's best for them, because otherwise they're going to suffer, right? And again, not to discount the fact that there is a healing period when it comes to, and I'm not just suggesting just instantly move on and forget about it, right? There are gonna be scars at times. There are gonna be some emotional healing that has to be done, but there has to be a focus, on your kids, right? And that's basically the main thing. You got to shift that focus, put them first. I know that sounds cliche-ish, but putting them first, not only means putting them first before the relationship, but it means putting them first before your personal agenda. And I think
Right.
sometimes that can be more challenging than putting them first. You may have complete closure with the relationship, but putting them first before, oh, now I'm single. It's hot girl, hot boy summertime right now, right? And so a lot of
Right.
times, that has to be suppressed as well in order to put them
Right.
first, because otherwise they're going to become in the way or a burden or whatever the case may be. And so I think those are important
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. That is so true. That's so true. Um, let me see. Crystal said mothers can enable can be enablers to promote the involvement of the father. That's true. That's so true. And Carla said, I love y'all. This is monumental because this is what is necessary for the children to grow in a healthy way. They will encounter life's challenges as well.
And let
Yeah.
me say this, guys, I'm gonna be completely remiss if I don't mention this, but um, it's I don't want you guys to look at me and like this just some great guy. I tap into the Holy Spirit. There's a grace that you have to have with all this stuff that doesn't come in the natural. It comes in the supernatural. And I don't even want to sit here and act like it's just me being this great guy, my willpower. You got to have the Holy Spirit. And that's just my experience. Maybe somebody else out there can do it on their own. I can't, right? You have to have the Holy Spirit to deal with the emotional attacks and, the just you know, taking authority and binding, being vindictive and wanting the worst for a person and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how to do that in the natural. So, that is a piece of it. For me, as a father, is that, without that guidance, without that help, without that counsel and know-how, sometimes, you just don't have the grace to do it. So I don't want to discount God and all of this, and just thank Him for the help and the wisdom that He's given me, and just the overall grace that He's given us through this process.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. You that's the truth. That is so true. Please, if y'all have any questions, I know you all are making comments as well. If you have any questions, please put in the chat. Um, Trisha mentioned that we can't do it in our own strength. Annette mentioned parents working together towards the healing process for themselves and the children. Thank you both for being so vulnerable. Crystal said, Amen, my brother. Continue to tap into the Holy Spirit and the grace. Trisha said, you can't do it out of your own strength. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You corrected what you said before. Yes. Yes. Darnell, he has a question. He says, do you feel like therapy is necessary when co-parenting? Do you want to answer that, or you
Yeah,
want me to
yeah.
answer?
I mean, that's I think to each his own, right? I'm definitely a big fan of counsel. If you need counsel, definitely get it, right? I think therapy is good. I would be very selective when it comes to these people. And Tiff knows how I feel about therapists. I mean, I don't think all therapists are created equal, but I think that there's some fantastic therapists out there. So, I wouldn't just get the first person on Google, right? But I would get somebody who, and that's, I'm gonna be honest, therapist is also something that you got to be prayerful about, right? To make sure that you have the right person that has the patience and the care when it comes to that, and not just you're just another customer occupying time. So yeah, I would definitely say therapist. I'm pro therapist when it comes to a person in need of that counseling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say the same. I mean, I have a therapist and a coach. I mean, I've been very blessed to be able to have good therapists in my corner. Um, I mean, for years. And I mean, and I don't think, I think everybody should have a therapist, because we go through so many life's challenges, not just, divorce or co-parenting, it's just whatever that comes along in life. And that therapist really helps you a good therapist really helps you to navigate life. And I've said this before, prayer is a weapon, but, therapy and coaching is a strategy that we use. And I believe God uses it through people. Um, Tiffany says, do you all think individual or group therapy is best? Well, it really, it just depends on the person. Everybody's situation is different. Um, and you know what you need, and really, um, this is a space that I'm entering into. So, so it's definitely something that you can talk to me about, Tiffany. As a side note, um, Crystal said, Tiffany, the message today: how can we accept God to do the impossible when we don't do the possible? You two love your kids and teach them. You are also emotionally available to your children. Yes. Oh, definitely. That's definitely something that's that's good to speak to. Tyrell, kind of talk about that, because I know with us having the kids, when we do, we are in a position where we can see them more physically to know what's going on with them. But then I know sometimes, I'll call you, you'll call me, and we'll let each other know as far as, what we're seeing with them. So kind of let me kind of talk about, um, to the point of emotional availability.
Yeah. So again, we talked about roles and things of that nature, but I think what I realize is that when the boys were with me, I realized that okay, they are void of the natural, nourishing, empathetic element that comes with mom, right? So
Mhm.
I had to make an adjustment in terms of in my sensitivities, because my initial reaction is get up off the
Suck it up.
floor and get back to whatever we had going on, right?
Right.
Whereas, I can recall prior to that, when I would say that, they would look over like, okay, well, he's not going to do anything about it, so I need you to come over here and rub my tummy, right? And so I did have to make the adjustments and make sure that I had to learn as far as um, just sort of a new characteristic, as who I was as a man, as far as those sensitivity and those nourishments. And if he gets up at 10 o'clock at night and says my stomach hurt, you know, it's just not go back to bed. We'll figure it out tomorrow, right? I have to really pay attention to that. And she will tell you, I call her sometimes and say, hey, we headed to the doctor's office, or we're headed to, I think it's serious enough to where we need to go get this checked out, right? Meet me at the doctor's office. And we've done that. There have been other instances where I've gotten too much of in the sensitivity lane, and I said that he's hurting, and his mom sort of countered me and said, no, he don't, no, he just does that. Right? That's no big deal.
Mhm.
Give him some, whatever we give him, and tell him to go back to bed, right? And so there's areas emotionally, not only with physical health, but with just the things that these kids go through in this social media era, right? Bullying, things like that, just can't be discounted. That's why I mentioned, as far as getting down in their world, knowing what they're going through, because they live in a different world than we grew up in, right? So it's important to listen to them, see what they have to say. Yeah, they're little people, they're young people a lot of times, whatever age your kids are, whether they're, both of my kids are in middle school right now. My daughter is 27, but even with that, she was sharing some things yesterday to me or the day before about her job situation. I would just, sit down and listen, and I learned some things just about her character and her fortitude. My son participates in, Taekwondo, and my other son participates in baseball, right? And then even within those sports, you see different things emotionally, where the reason we chose Taekwondo, because we figured that some of the things that he was dealing with in school, Taekwondo was the sport that would sort of help him with that discipline, or with that self-confidence, or with that acceptance. And we've seen a drastic change, even as improvement. So, just listening to what they're dealing with in their lives, just like we would want somebody to listen to us. And, again, sometimes it's not about us trying to fix it or find a resolve. Sometimes they just want us to listen. Even boys, they just want to be heard out. And so a lot of times we don't always have to be okay, you need to do this just because you're dealing with that. But sometimes they just want to be heard. Sometimes they just want to sit down. Sometimes, emotionally they just want to watch the worst movie that you've ever seen in your life, for a couple
That's
hours.
true.
And so those are some of the things from an emotional standpoint that, we just kind of have to get out in that world and make those adjustments and see them where they are.
Yeah, that's good. That is so true. Now, do you all have any other questions? Because we're about to wrap this up. And Tyrell, I want to make sure you didn't have any questions for me. Um, but before we leave, is it anything that you want to leave with everyone? That you want to make sure that people know, whether it's fathers or mothers or whomever.
Yeah, I just want to, real quickly, just, to the dads, especially those that view their kids as in the way. It is so important, fellas, that we keep our eyes, on both boys and girls, right? The role that we play is not discounted. They need us just like they need their mother. And again, I'm a man, so I'm speaking directly to the fellas. And so I just encourage you to push as hard as you could possibly push to be in your kid's life. I don't care if you hadn't seen them in 50 years, right? And I'm saying that as far as an extreme number, but if you hadn't seen your kids in a while, or they're still alive, I don't care how long it's been, it's not too late. Try your best to at least be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I gave my best shot. If the kid doesn't accept you, if it doesn't work out or you can't do it, I would just say push your hardest to reestablish, if you don't have anything established with your kids, and just that. And I got one of my friends, my close friends, established a relationship with his father later in life, and they have a beautiful relationship now. And he was well into adulthood, and his father got to experience grandkids and things of that nature. So just push. It's never too late. And don't be on a guilt trip about the time lost, because just ask for restoration of that time and just push as hard as you can.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We do have a question that's come in. Darnell said, while in the midst of a conflict, it's good to not vent Okay, I'm sorry. It looks like he's making a statement. While in the midst of a conflict, it's good not to vent or say something bad about the other parent to your children. Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with that. Did you want to talk on that, Terrell?
No, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Yeah, because your parent, your child is still um the other parent's child too. And you don't want to say anything that will cause them to feel like they're in the middle of both of you. You want to, whether you agree with everything that's being done or said, by the other co-parent, that's something that you have to address with that co-parent. That's not something that you should be talking on the phone to anyone within, where someone, where the child can be an earshot to hear. um, so it's so important, and that's a way of us also protecting our child emotionally, because we want our child to be able to have the best possible relationship with the other parent. So it doesn't matter, in the conflict or not, keep your feelings to yourself while the children are around, and just know, okay, I'm doing what's best for my child in this moment, because that's still their father, they're still their mother, and they still love them, no matter if you don't or not. That child still love their parent. Um, Darnell said, "How did both deal with anger and disappointment around the children?" I guess he's asking us, how did we both deal with anger or disappointment around our kids? Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, as far as well, I guess it goes both ways, right? I guess if we got
Hmm.
just a personal disappointment, they're going to see it. If we got collective disappointment as it relates to each other, they'll see it. Again, I'm very transparent um, when it comes to my kids. Again, I don't do Disney. We don't do elephants in the room, right? So, me and my kids, even the disappointment of the divorce, we discussed in great detail. I wanted to know how they felt about it. We talked about, you know, what happens when your mom get remarried, and my son's like, I'm going to call him Papa. How you feel about that, right? And so, we joked and tongue in cheek about that, and they wanted to know what's going to happen next and all this kind of stuff. So I just say, let them see that you're not, kids got to understand they're modeling you in those roles as well, right? Because they got to see that, if you're shielding them from disappointment, you're modeling and training them in those areas as well, right? How to deal with that. And even with the transition from the house, my kids were there. I had an option to probably go stay at my folks' house for a while, but I said no, because I'm training young men how to transition, right? And so my son actually was able to see, us going into an apartment complex with just a folding chair and an air mattress. And my children was like, what is this bed? My kids grew up in Hoover. So he was like, what is this bed that plugs in the wall? And only had one. And so they slept on that. He's like, where are you going to sleep? I said, I'm going to sleep on the floor on the pallet. He's like, what's a pallet? I said, oh, God, I'm going to be all day with these kids. And so, and we went from their bedroom setting. So they saw, uh, the transition and the progression. And so we're always teaching them. Even when we falter, I think that should be motivation for us to let them know that, no, we ain't going to bust nobody's car windows out, or we don't have to react in anger or lack of self-control when disappointment and stuff happens. So I would just say model, what you want them to be when they become productive citizens of society. Just model that, um, and that would be my advice, is what to reflect.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say the same too. And I mean, the one thing about kids, especially our kids, I mean, you can't hide anything from them. I mean, they know exactly, what's going on. They will um, ask you, how are you doing? Or, I mean, it's really hard for me, because I catch an attitude when I'm not feeling good. So a lot of times um, they'll try to make me feel better, or and then some days I have to just be honest with them and say, hey, mama's not feeling good. Um, and I just let it be. I said, I feel better, but I try to be honest. I'm probably not as head on as Tyrell is about stuff, but that just makes us different, and it's not good or bad. It's just different. And the advantage that our kids have is that they can experience both of us. And I think that's the beauty of co-parenting, that they can continue to experience both of us and our parenting style. And we still growing, as people. So they get to see us grow, they get to see us evolve, and to know that it's okay. Let me see. See, Darnell said, "This has been a great discussion. Thanks for you both. I will continue to give you both wisdom. God, pray, give you wisdom from above to lead your family." Thank you so much, Darnell. Appreciate it. Annette says she loves the honesty. Thank you all so much for joining today. I definitely, Terrell, I definitely appreciate you coming on, taking the time to share your journey with us, and then, I mean, we just want people to know that it's possible, for them to still co-parent, um, and to still, put their children first. And I'm sorry, I'm up here reading the comment. Tammy, thank you so much. She said, "Great conversation, family." It's hard for me to talk and read the comments at the same time. But thank y'all so much. Do you have anything else? Thank y'all, Instagram family.
No, just thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Definitely appreciate it. If y'all don't follow, well, Terrell's not on Instagram or Facebook or anything, so I'm not going to tell him to give his handles.
I got a Facebook page, but it's been hacked, and y'all see all that police brutality stuff. That's not me. So I'm working on getting that fixed right
Okay,
now.
so if y'all see some craziness from Terrell's page, that ain't him. But if you all do need a real estate agent, real estate broker in Alabama, feel free to reach out to him. As well, because he is a real estate broker. So if you need to buy a house or sell a house, he's your man. He's been in it for it has not been almost been 20 years now.
17 years.
17 years. Yep. So he's been in it. He got the experience during the pandemic through everything. So he ain't new to this. He just true to it. See how I did that?
Look, and in the true spirit of co-parenting, if you need a personal trainer, call my daughter.
I know that's right. Definitely. We got to put our plugs in. All right. Well, if you don't follow me on Instagram, I am Tiffany D. Newton on Instagram. Also on Facebook, I am Tiffany D. Newton. And please join our tribe on Facebook. We have a Facebook group called Teach Me Tribe. It's a space for men and women to come together. We talk about anything and everything. And this month we're talking about Black love. So it's a wonderful month to join in on that. And also the Teach Me Tribe has a YouTube channel as well. So definitely go and subscribe, and all the lives that you've seen on my 30-day challenge has been there. So I thank you all so much for joining. Day 29, and tomorrow will be the last day. I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that tomorrow is going to be the last day of my challenge. But I thank you all so much for just going on this journey with me, and it's just been truly a blessing. So Tyrell, thank you again for joining. Thank you all as well, and until then, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.